Let's talk about this stone tool, which, as I said at the beginning, I find to be the most difficult to understand. And I'll try to understand and study the flake proportions and use that to sort of support other things that I want to say about this piece of rock. But it remains somewhat confusing. But I want to say that there's several different things that are making me want to say that it looks really pretty old compared to most of the other things that I've got here. Old in the same way that this thing feels old, that I talked about earlier. And before I get on with the flake analysis, let's just take a look at it. You get this impression that these flake scars were on the core before this thing was knocked off. You see almost no secondary flaking, maybe just those two things right there, those two surfaces. Otherwise it's either major flakes or something that was on the core. You realize that this stuff, these rough surfaces, are actually, there's flaking having gone on there. So those are tertiary flakes. So there's a little teeny collection of tertiary flakes right along there. Maybe a little bit over here. And so you say, what is this thing? Is this a tool? It looks like a stemmed point of some sort, but that's not aerodynamic. It wouldn't fly through the air. Is it an edge? Sort of, kind of, sort of, maybe, but not really. So something that, if used as a point at all, is for stabbing. Now, why do I think this might be old? Well, for one thing, I think it's fun if it would be old, so that's a bias. But I tell you, it's darker. It's a darker black than everything else. It's just been sitting on the surface a lot longer than everything else. And just this absence of secondary flaking makes me sort of curious about it. So now I think that the analysis of this stone tool, I'm sorry I'm talking so much about it, is that you do see that the stem was probably used to hafted, and there's a bit of polish right there, so a stick would have been stuck right there, and then tied on, lashed on. So it's a bona fide point of some kind. But the question is this core text here, or is that primary flake? I ask that only in terms of the metric that I'm going to apply. Because if it's primary flake, this is all primary flake. It's got wee bits of secondary flake and wee bits of tertiary flake, and you get a measurement like this, divided between cortex and primary flake, and just a wee bit of the other two. Whereas if you assume that this surface here is there's some justification for thinking that that's primary flake. It somehow came out rough, even though there's traces of the bulb of percussion here. Well, if that's primary flake and this is primary flake, then the measurement comes out mostly primary flake and a little bit of secondary and tertiary flake before. So now what I want to say is that is in fact like the measurements for this, which were 0.800. And then if you look at this Wasserstein different distance between, well, this possible measurement for the stemmed tool, or this possible measurement for the stemmed tool, you're going to see that it really comes down to how you're interpreting that surface. But under one interpretation, you get something that's 6 units away from this. And under another interpretation of the measurement, you get something that's only 3 units away from that, because you can turn this into a column of 8s by moving this 1 and this 2 to get an 8 there. It's kind of an interesting observation that if I look at this version of the measurement versus this version of the measurement, they're 3 apart also. So these two are as close as these two, but these two, if I work it out, are 6 apart. So this measurement's more consistent with wanting it to be like that. And I understand that there's some circularity in what I'm saying, but you do get a sense that this is perhaps was prepared on the core rather carefully before being whacked off and then further sharpened in a limited way and used in a stemmed manner. And I wanted to say something conclusive about that. You go online and look for things that appear like this, and you find them in a collection of objects called Aterian points, which, what do you know, they turn out to be from the Middle Paleolithic, just like this. So a similar set of of stages of manufacture between these two. This is a little bit more refined than that, in that it's got a bit of secondary flaking and little attention spent to the tertiary flaking. So that's my best guess. Nothing conclusive, but the vectors and the distances measured in this Wasserstein manner are, I think, helpful to show the alternative that way.